Yeah, so hey everyone, karibuni sana again for episode 2 The Climb. Sijui kama mko excited as I am. Alituacha na suspense sana. So just a few rules. Tafadhali usi-unmute na turn on video if you're not speaking, and yeah, ukitaka kuuliza swali, I will post the slide link on the chat, ama unaweza uliza tuna chat. You don't have to use English here. Yeah, that's it. Fun Friday inaletwa bi-weekly, and it's just us talking about basic stuff that affect every community, si tech peke yake. So Frank, the floor is yours.
Okay, cool. Chandretta, you need to remind me, where did I reach? Didn't get happy last time. Let's see. I think nilikuwa nimefika. I think I'd reached the point of just before I joined Intel. Sindio? Yeah, I think I joined
Exactly.
Intel. Yes.
Yeah.
Wewe umepeleka wapi psych wewe Frank?
We relax.
Nini nakufanya leo?
Relax. Unajua
Ama umeachwa?
Nimeachwa. No, you know the problem. Let me tell you the problem.
Ulikuwa na zile issues za kuachwa, sijui 10 bob, unakumbuka?
Nakumbuka, we relax. Sikiza. Unajua today, Friday is a special day, especially today, because apparently some guys were making fun of me and ati Juma ati hashtag being left group. Community being left. And that's the only reason as to why most guys, now everyone has started creating a story. The reason why I got into coding is because someone left me. That's a lie, man. I never got into coding because someone left me. Anyway, acha tukue serious sasa. And usijali, nilikuwa na try to move around because na try to charge simu. It's not being charged for the whole day and I don't want to use my computer. So place nilikuwa nimefika. I think tulikuwa tumeacha at specifically that bit where I was just now Moringa School has happened or it's happening. I think either it was before Moringa School or Moringa School is happening.
Ilikuwa before. Just before.
Before yeah. Moringa School happened, yeah. So yes, I joined Intel. I'd been working around. So let me just take it from the guys who are not there. So the guys who don't know me, who are wondering who's this guy, my name is Frank Tamre, and I am a normal human being. In as much as anyone else is going to tell you everything else, I am just a normal human being who I think I keep on saying is I have been privileged to do a few extraordinary things. Just a few, not many, just a few. So the first thing nini happened, I was nilikuwa nimefika hiyo point yenye nimetoka. So I was still at Intel. I just gotten the job at Intel. So I was given the job. And I think one of the first mistakes I did, let me just start it from there, is when I was joining Intel, Kumbuka I was a hustler, so I was staying in a house costing 6,500 Kenya shillings, not dollars, Kenya shillings. That was like it's a 2-bedroom apartment enye tulikuwa tuna share na watu. So after nipate job ya so niliibiwa. I think I mentioned that I'd been robbed from inside the house from the previous story, episode 1. If you've not had stories from the past, from that episode 1, please, I think a link will be shared in the description, or you can read the comment section. I have a YouTube channel also. I'll share that link. Anyway, who recruited Kato? Alvin Kato. Michael, I think you refer to Alvin Kato, right? If it's Alvin Kato you're referring to, and that was like Moringa School. I'm coming to that story now. Coming to that story of how he joined Moringa and stuff. So I was still just before he joined Intel, so I was staying in this house 6,500, and so you can imagine I had already told you the stories of like the hustling and the like. And so what happened is nilikuwa kwa hii point yenye I hope all of us are Swahili speakers. If you're not a Swahili speaker, please let me know. Please let me know in the comment section, please. So I think kwa nimefika hiyo point yenye nilikuwa naangalia kila kitu. And I was like, for me, paying a rent of 6,500, I knew my monthly shopping at the most ingekuwa ni kama 3,500. again, I didn't have anyone who was dependent on. Mdem sasa ilikuwa, I think at that time girlfriend was like, stuff was just about like, we were like getting a little bit more serious. And I think during that time is when I sort of like did the math and I was like, yeah, pop the question, man. Besides, it's like a Christian dating, and the ultimate is like we have to get married, we have to get married. So that was the thing. So then I popped it. I think I asked around about at that time. It was this was like just even when I was just about when I started doing the stuff in 2013. And so I started getting some semblance of money. And for me, I think I have this hope of I always hope just keep the Queen's language. Okay, I'll keep the Queen's language. Okay, cool, no problem. So I had decided that it's better for me to pop the questions. I popped the questions like I wanted to ask her out to like settle down and stuff. And so I get to spend time with her and like yeah, pop the question. So I joined Intel, and so I'm doing this interview, and so I'm asked how much money should we pay you, and so I'd been prepped for that and told when they ask you for money, you just give a figure. And so you see in my head, I'm like 6,500 shillings is my rent, and so when I do my food, if I do my travel, if I want to save like 20K per month, trust you me, the total amount of money I needed when I'm going to work at Intel was 65,000 Kenya shillings. And I was like, if you pay me that amount, I'm good. And so I go to the meeting and I'm prepped for like, they ask me for this figure, I'll tell them any is okay. And then if they insist, I'll give them 65. So I sit in the meeting. And so at that time, the person interviewing me, I think was Agatha. Now, the second interview now was Agatha. And so when I sit down with Agatha, Agatha asks me like, okay, so how much should we pay you? And so this is like towards the end of like 2013. So Agatha asks me like, how much should we pay you? And so I tell her 65,000. And Agatha literally was shocked because she's like the manager of the whole of Africa. She's like, wait, what? And she wrote it down like I saw her writing like a note. And so she was shocked. She's like, wait, did he just say 65,000 Kenya shillings? Then she asked me, did you say Kenya shillings or dollars? I was like, Kenya shillings. And so when I saw like she was shocked, I told her, oh, we can negotiate downward or upward, it depends. I never thought that was very little money I was asking for. Obviously, they went and upgraded my salary. Like that's not the amount that I joined earning at Intel. So when I joined, the joke that I think my immediate boss kept on telling me is like, dude, what's up with you? Why were you asking for this little money? I think at that time my basic math of calculating how much money it was. I never used to think about like companies and this is the amount of money that they pay people, and also doing extra research outside. I never used to do something like that. So that was, I guess, that was like a weakness on my part because I just was focused on more like let me work and you pay me for the value of services that I'm gonna offer to you. And so joining Intel for me was like a ticket out of not even poverty per se. It was like a ticket towards doing something really meaningful. And so I joined Intel and I gave my all. Oh my God, I gave my all like you have no idea. And so I pushed myself and pushed myself. And so when I'm at Intel, I made myself a promise is that I listed down a couple of things that I wanted to learn with specifically Intel. The one thing I think I joined Intel with was this is not my father's company, so I'm not going to be here forever. And the best thing I can do for myself is learn the things I need to learn. And then once I've learned these things, I
Guest of honor ametoka.
Ala.
Hata nashangaa what happened. Hata unajua anaweza kuwa amebaki akijiongelesha ajui hata ametoka. Na alikuwa
Well,
amesema
amesema,
eh?
this call is not his father's and he will not stay here forever.
wait, sorry, I'm here. Sorry. Yeah. So I was saying, for me, Intel was like I wrote down a list of things I wanted to learn, and then once I wrote down this list of things I wanted to learn, I said once I learn them, I'll leave, or not even leave. It's like I'll try and see what will happen afterwards. And so I joined Intel, and within the first, I think 5 months or 6 months, I'd already gone through like full scale of like what it means to hold a training, what it means to like give the sessions, interacting with external engineers, seeing the way they work. And so for me, I always had one thing. So my grandma, and I think I said this when I was in the Atlassian open bar the session, I think some couple of weeks back. You can probably join Atlassian on Telegram and just scroll up and you'll see all those questions that I was asked. I think one of the final thing that I told people like just before my grandma died, I think it was around 2 weeks or a month, I'm not so sure. So she she told me one thing. She told me, you have two of everything. If you look at your head, you have two of everything except one thing, and that is your mouth. And so use your brain. Your brain has two parts, your left side and right side. Your nose has two nostrils, you know. Your eyes, you have two of them. Your ears, you have two of them. So do more of the things that are in your head, and not talking too much. So don't be a talker, but then you're not a doer. And so I really stuck to those principles where I was like, you know what? I'm going to sit down. I'm gonna observe so many things. So I learned a lot of things by just observing what Fred was doing, how Agatha was behaving, how she was doing stuff, the kind of emails they write. And just like learning how to be composed when you're doing these emails, and like knowing who are you talking to and addressing them and stuff like that. So I learned so much, so much when I was at Intel. I think that gave me that opportunity. And like it's really important for me to say, like, so Fred and Agatha, I feel like it took me in and took me in. Like, Fred was like, this is my younger brother. Agatha was there and was like, you know what, this is a talented person. Let me see how far we can take him in his career. And so roundabout towards the end of um, 2014, I think I just had a couple of issues then, but then I think the most one was in 2014 now, around February, March there, I met up with Audrey. And so how I met up with Audrey was interesting. So remember 2013 and early 2014, 2013 I had been traveling around. And so for me, the thing I think while growing up I was always fascinated by being something like a coach. Like you're a football coach, you get a player, you have to train them, upgrade them, and then they play best within a team, or they go and perform, and then they can continue their life. And so I was always fascinated with that whole idea of how can I look at people. When I look at people, I'm thinking, how can I increase their capacity? How can I improve them? And so that's why for me, I think joining Intel and training was so easy for me. It came as a first-hand thing. I had to learn some things, obviously, but it came so easily. And so my a very interesting thing for me was when I joined Intel, the first 2 months, 3 months, I think I was like doing so many things, you have no idea. I'd be like, I was the yes person. Can you do this? Yes. Can you handle this? Yes. And even asking for more. And so I really stretched myself and learned a lot of things when I was there. And I think one of the things that happened during this time was I interacted now. That's when I met Audrey. So I met Audrey. So I was always entertaining the idea of doing a university. And so, and I'm going to build up to Moringa School. So I'd always entertained that thought. And so I remember I'd already met a couple of guys who I'm going to talk about when I'm talking about this on Moringa School story. And so 2013, 2014, if I'm entertaining this thought, after I'm like, okay, maybe I can put money aside and then do a university at some point in future. But then the most interesting thing happened. So I am it's a Saturday morning. I used to spend Saturday mornings. Till today, I love waking up on Saturday just working. So I wake up on this day and I'm like, okay, cool. I want to go and work. I'm going to work on something. And so this working on something involves, I need to leave where I am and go to this new location. And so this new location ends up being what? MLab. So I go to MLab every day in the morning because Intel was a partner at MLab. I was like, I have access to this place. I have access to this location. And so I decided that, hey, you know what? Best idea ever. Let me plug in here. And so plugging in there for me meant I could understand a bunch of things that was going on. So I could understand a bunch of things that was going on. And then on top of that, the most important thing for me, I guess, was how could I grow as a human being? And so growing as a human being was I needed to practice. There's this new philosophy that I talked about. Please, someone remind me. You can type in the section, philosophy, athletics. I'll talk about it later as a closing shot. So, I wake up in the morning on Saturdays. I go to iHub. I sit down. It's very silent. I'm always there by I think I was always there by 6, 7ish when the cleaners were still doing their cleaning. And so as the cleaners are doing their cleaning, I am like, hey, you know what? I'm learning a bunch of stuff. I'll practice. And I'm good. I'm getting good at those things. So fast forward. All these things are happening. I'm learning stuff. I'm like, cool. makes sense for me. So I sit down at IHub this Saturday morning, and when I sit down, I decide it's a February, and so I sit down. There was a GDG meetup that was happening, I think, later on in the day, and so I decided, let me wake up in the morning, do my stuff, then I'll go and join this GDG meetup. But something interesting happened. So I walk in and I'm alone. I'm seated, I'm working, and then I left. I think I went to look for like food or something. So when I go looking for food, I go and eat food. I buy food from the supermarket.
Frank,
Yes.
pole nimekuinterrupt. At
Yes.
this point sasa unaweza jinunulia chakula, ungoji ya GDG.
Manze. Yes. Now, levels have changed, man. Levels have changed. Levels
Sasa ile
have changed.
65,000 ulitufikia huku tuambia ni nini?
Sikuitisha 60. Unajua sasa nilitisha, I asked for 65,000, but what
Yeah.
happened at the end was I was not given 65. They upgraded my salary. And so
Oh.
they upgraded my salary. And then also there was this thing they called Podii. I think that was the first time I was interacting with a word called Podii, where it was ridiculous. Every single time I travel out of town, I was being paid a shit ton of money. I think it was $100 per day. And it was like, if I just leave my station, I've gone to Kisumu for a day, $100. It's like, that is for you to like, do Intel work stuff that does not interfere with your salary. And so it was like I had money. But then the thing is, again, I'm not an overspender. My money was mostly used to send back either to family, help friends, and stuff like that. So that is what would happen. So what would happen is I sat down, talked to people, and that's what I do. So this day, I wake up in the morning when I go to IHOP. I'm going to buy food. So I've bought food, I'm chilling, and I've gone out. So I come back to the boardroom. I was at the boardroom, and then I'm seeing there's a foreigner seated there, and I'm like, wait, what? Why is she here? So then my first instinct is to ask her, hi, how are you? Good morning. So I say I'm not going to ask any question. I'm just going to stay here. And then she asks me, hey, sorry, I'm seated here. Do you have a meeting? I'm like, I don't have a meeting. Have you booked it? She's like, no, I've not booked. Do you mind if I stay here? I'm like, sure, you can just stay there. And so we continue working, I think for a couple of minutes or something like that. And so I'm focused on my work, and she's also focusing on her work. And then I think at some point she asked me, do you know any good printers? And then I think people who could print, because the problem is sometimes you do a design of color green, but the color that you're given is not color green. So they go and print for you a green, and they try and tell you like, no, that is green. And so they've done a very poor job, but they don't want to tell you that. And so I sit down. I am like so disappointed in what has happened. And so in the conversations that we're having, we end up talking about designers, good designers. Who do I know? Can I share the links with her? So that it can help her out and stuff like that. And so we continue. And so those conversations end up being around, yeah, we also have a problem with developers. Yes, blah, blah, blah. And so we talk about developers. And then we start talking about solutions. Remember, we don't know each other's first name. We do not know each other's first name when you're talking about all of these things. And that's why I was like, it's important when we talk about this. So we're just talking about like, yeah, there's this problem. We're just passionate about this problem. Yeah, there's this problem, and this is how we can solve. This is the problem, blah blah blah. And so we start talking about like this is how we can solve it. For me, I was never scared of like sharing about like the concepts I was thinking about. And so I'm like, yeah, conversation, and then she just sits down and listens to whatever thing I was talking to her about. And so we are like, okay, cool, awesome. That's the thing. And so I think at the end of it all, it was more, can we do this? Can we start this together? Do you mind if we did this? And so I was like, sure, what do I have to lose anyway? And so we do, and she's also sure about it. And so we spend the next at the end of the conversation, that's like towards like 2 p.m. or 1 p.m. when I had to leave now and go to GDG. That's when she asks me, and so she had to leave, and so she leaves. And so I'm left at the boardroom, and I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, cool. I've thought about this thing. I think this can make sense for us, blah, blah. Then we exchange contacts. Then we introduce each other at that time. Meanwhile, we have talked about everything that was needed to talk about. Of like, yeah, we can do this. We've not talked about what the share. Obviously, we had the assumption we'll just have 50-50 anyway. So I mean, we do that and we leave. So we leave each one of us goes their separate ways. We exchange contacts. Hey, I'm Audrey. Hey, I'm Frank. Blah blah blah. Bye bye. See you. That. And so this is in February of 2014 when we decide, hey, we're gonna do this. And so we plan to meet. I think it was like on a Tuesday or something. So I leave there. I go to GDG, and life continues. Tuesday we meet up. So I start shifting my time between working at. She was an intern at Savannah Fund, the venture capitalist firm. Blah blah. She was here on internship from NWU, Northwestern, and when she was here. So we're like, we're interacting with each other, and like, hey, blah, 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 we're talking. And so the interesting thing happens here is we start doing this. So it's like all of us have to sacrifice a portion of our time to work on this thing. And so I'm trying to balance between doing intern stuff, finish it, do this other thing there. And remember, I'm still learning a lot of stuff at intern. So I'm like, yeah, this is non-negotiable. I need to do this. But then, I do it until around, she had to travel back, I think April, May there, or yeah, she had to travel back for a very long time back to the States. And so I was left to like now plan for everything, get people, recruit people, blah, blah, blah. So 2013, so here's the funny part, 2013, December, I had talked to a couple of people. So on this Friday, on this February, I had already was looking at Samantha, the UX lab lead and stuff. So I looked at her and told her, hey, Sam, yeah, I love that you're doing your UX lab here. Then I asked her, what if I start a coding school? Do you mind coming in and just teaching on that? And so Samantha listened. And so she listened. And so, we were friends with her. So she's like, okay, cool, that makes sense. Let's talk about, have you started it? And so I told her, when I started, I'll tell you. So this is around 2014-ish there, 2013. And then there's nothing at all at this time. Alvin Kato, who MK has asked, I met him through, it was interesting how I met Alvin. Alvin was there was a Microsoft thing I was doing. And so I do the training. And so we interact with him. I realized it's from Uganda. I'm like, whoa, man, dude, that's awesome. And so we have this chat with him. And so we clicked as friends. And so when we clicked as friends, I told him a joke, hey, man, I'm going to start this thing next year. And he's like, are you serious? This is 2014 now. He's like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah, I'm serious. So he's like, okay, fine. I think he just forgot about it. And we continue. And so towards the end of this year, remember, we've done so many things. And so I think one of the things that I need to mention is I feel like during this 2014 is when I noticed a couple of things where it's there were challenges, especially when we were having this relationship with Audrey of how do you talk to this, how do you deal with stuff outside, how do you deal with stuff here, and so all these scenarios. And so one of the biggest things was we have a lot of issues here. Yes, you have to make stuff happen, but there are so many things that are happening between work and everything like that. I think got to a point where I was like, no, I can't do this. And I think I was even told her that, considered, but then we came back and said, okay, fine, we'll do it. Now, we end up ending that year, me thinking and going back to Sam and telling her, hey, I'm going to start this thing in January, I've done this. And so when you are looking for space, the first space that we got actually was at Nairobi Garage. And Nairobi Garage at that time was located at where Brew Bistro is. I forget the name of that plaza. I don't know if I forget the name of that plaza, but just where Brew Bistro is right now. If you go it was the top floor of that building. So we were at the top floor where Nairobi Garage was. And so I remember at that time there were some things we were doing at Intel, and I had to go to Nairobi Garage and help them fix it. And it was fix the relationship with Intel. And I guess afterwards, when I was looking for space, the most obvious place to go to at that time, because I looked at iHub and it was not possible for me to get a closed space. And I think around about this time, Nairobi Dev School had just started. You were having and then I was rumors of it coming to the picture, and they already started making all this hype about it, doing marketing and stuff. And so when we are getting in to the space of education, remember I'm still at Intel, so then I do my Intel stuff, I focused on it 100%. I never used to stealing my employer's time and multitasking and stuff. So whenever I'm free, I will do it. Whenever I'm not, I focus on the work. And so afterwards, when now it came to a point, I was like, okay, cool, it's December, guys are going on a holiday. As I now hunting for space, specifically. And then I talked to Hannah from Nairobi Garage, and she was like, yeah, fine, you guys can move in, and I don't mind giving you a leeway for when you have money, you'll come and pay. And so So that happens. We move in. I mean, like, I'll tell you the truth. When we started it, like, we didn't even have like money to save. We're gonna put in this amount of money, or we put in this amount of money for rent. We were all starting it from that point of like we're like flat. And so I think Audrey came back in January of 2015. And so that's when now, sorry, of 2015. And that's when we started now Moringa School. And so we do Moringa School. I remember during that initial phase, our roles were like specifically split. She was going to handle the operations, and I was going to handle like every other thing to do with the internal running of the school, apart from finances and admin work. Because I was like, yeah, I mean, I was trained in accounting, as I told you guys earlier, but accounting comes easy to me, but I just don't like doing it. I do not like doing it at all. I've done the CPA, whatever. I mean, told you guys I dropped out, I think at like section 4, just before I did the exam. But I was like, I mean, these things come easy to me, like making books, doing profits and loss and stuff like that, and looking at figures. Those things come easy to me. And so one of the funny thing was, I never thought during that time when you're starting out. I think we just like had a conversation with we had a conversation with I guess what's the name of this person? I had a conversation with I think some of my friends, and they're like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to do this," and that was it. I think my parents were even more confused because remember when I was at intern, I'd send them money. But then now all of a sudden, money was not going to come because now I was starting a new venture. Right? They're like, wait, what's wrong with this one? So I guess I spent a lot of time thinking about it, whether I wanted to go full time into like doing business and being an entrepreneur. I like doing it. So at the bottom of my mind, I was like, yeah, there's this dream that I wanted to do at university. And to make it more contextualized, Galleria at that time was just being constructed. And I remember looking at the way Galleria used to look like. This is not in 20, it's like before 2014. And I'd look at it and I was like, I'd really want to own a place, a university that looks like this. That design, you know, those pillars standing there. And it's like this very cool place, and guys can just come and like get lost there and do crazy stuff, you know? And so when I'm joining and starting a school, for me, I knew I had to learn like, how do you teach? How do you impact people? And so I spent a lot of time researching on that. Oh my God, the amount of books I read on performance enhancement, on like trainings, on like coaching, on like mentoring people, beginners and stuff, simplifying stuff. Remember, the thing is that you can have a very good developer. A good developer does not make a good instructor. Sometimes they can be the worst instructors ever. But a very good instructor can train a beginner developer and make them really amazing. And so for me, I was actually out for like, can I teach? How can I make the classes look fun? But at the same time, how do I touch people with like psychology and stuff? So for me, I come from that side of, I like using psychology when I'm teaching people. I do not like doing anything else. So I am more focused on how can I use psychology to drive any engagement I have with people, especially large groups of people. And by large groups of people is anything more than one. So when you talk about 2 people and you have to go around a certain specific path, I have to sit down and plan that pathway and say, look, this is how things are going to flow and something like that. And so, so I spent a lot of time reading. And so by the time we're starting in 2015, I am loaded. I'm like, I have information about teaching, and I know how this thing, one, is at the back of my mind. Our curriculum will keep on evolving. So this is not like a final document. And so I think when we started is when now Audrey was back. I think that was when I started noticing like the first cracks of our relationship. Permit me not to mention them out here, but like just know there were like major cracks where I was like, I can't deal with this. This is against my value system. But I guess for me back then in January and February was more like, okay, these are the troubles that happen when you're starting out anything. And so I should be prepared for this. And so my life literally went from being available and stuff to now, remember, there's no income or anything. I guess the only mistake I made when I was leaving Intel was I never knew how to tell them like, hey guys, you know what, I'm done, I'm gone. Or like write an email or something like that. I just stopped going and didn't know like, they're like, what's wrong with this guy? What's wrong with this guy? Then I think finally they're like, come and do this one more task with us. When they think they realize that I'm starting something, they're like, hey, come and do this task with us. And I guess that's like one of the biggest mistakes I made, I think, in my life is that like you should be able to like tell people who you've been working with, no matter how close you are, tell them like, hey guys, look, I've gotten to this point. I want to start this institution and I really want to do it. And so that was like one of the mistakes that I did. And forever, I'm always like, yeah, that part is a very dark moment of my life. So, yeah, Mikey, I'm going to answer this. Yeah, I'm going to answer this. Yeah, so I'm going to answer this at some point. But when I started talking specifically about Moringa School and all the things, because I guess there's some people in this call also who had these questions, and I think I've always repeated that sometimes we need to like sit down and ask people and talk about all this conversation. So I'm going to ask them. I'm going to answer them definitely, Michael. So don't worry, MK. So we do Moringa School, and so the first phase of it was we had to come up with a figure that we could teach people. And so here's the thing I'll tell you: the amount of money that you were charging people of 200K was really cheap back then. Now I don't know. If you ask me about Moringa School now, I will tell you on your face, I have no clue what goes on there. The only information I get is from the following set of people. One, either the current staff who are frustrated at something there. They will reach out to me randomly and say, hey, I got your number from blah, blah, blah. I mean, my number is like public information right now. I got your number from here. But I'll tell you the truth. If you ask my friends for my number, they will never give you. They never give you. I'm like, no, I don't have his number, or why do you want his number, and all those things. And they'll get in touch with me. But like, if you can get my number from where you can get it, you'll get it. So during this time, I guess one of the most interesting things that happened was we came up with this figure. And so I know when I say 200K for 5 or 4 months, it was actually 4 months when we started, looked like a very high figure, or looks like a very high figure. But remember, we were teaching front-end development and mobile development. And so when we were doing front-end development and mobile development, one of the things that we had to do was to find out how this would work, you know. So how that would work meant a very simple thing. How was I going to be prepped for the following things? Number one, was this prepping them. Sorry, I was just like deferring a call. And so one of the things that I think I saw during this time was, how do I prepare myself for the following? So I think now we are like starting. So 200,000 meant we are teaching people front end, we are teaching people mobile app development. There's also job prep over here. And so when we looked at the market and to what guys were offering, when we combined these total courses, we had an institution that would charge you, I think Immobilis back was like 40K. And I think it probably totaled up to like what, 60, 80K. And then when we added plus what guys would go and learn from NIBS or Nairobi Institute, not Design Institute, Nairobi, this thing, aviation and stuff all around, we looked at those costs. They were literally coming up to more. Like if you were to go to the individual classes versus you coming to Moringa School once and for all, it became a very interesting thing. So what I decided during this time, I guess, was one very simple thing. Like, look, it makes sense for us to give a bundle thing, pay for once, and then you get all of these efforts there. And so the 200,000 ended up being very, very cheap for people. I mean, like if you look at it on a very big side. Granted, when we started with 4 students. And so these 4 people were a very interesting lot, because I think they were the guys who decided to take a risk with us, which is interesting. I mean, when I was doing the interviews with people, we never knew the following things. We never knew how much one. We never knew the following things. We never knew allocation when I was doing the interviews, because we did the interviews, I think, sometime in 2014, when it was just in the middle phase, around August there, September. And so that's when we did the interviews for people to join the program. And so this whole model was something that we did research on, and we were like, you know what, boot camps outside, this is how they operate. These are the things that we need. This is the flow that we want to adopt, you know? And so once we used that model, what happened is we saw like, okay, look, this thing works. I think we can just optimize it for here. And so, so like, I think one of the things that we decided to do was, look, this thing makes sense for us as people who are teaching. Let us just implement it. And so, So the question that I think MK is asking, how much would it cost to bring a dev from SF to train students or sponsor themselves? So we had that model. We actually got people who are interns at Hack Reactor and they would come in and they do like sessions and stuff. But then, that would mean you have to pay them a daily rate to stay here. It's really expensive. You have to pay for their flight, you have to pay for their accommodation, and you also have to pay for their upkeep, and then also you have to pay for extra money that they're going to make when they're here. And so this cost can go even way more than $10,000. Because I don't know how much the flight is. I've not checked recently the flight from FF to here, return for that matter. Because when they're flying into this country, they have to do that. And then again, remember, if they are working and if they come under a work visa, you have to pay for that. So it's not them to pay for it. It's like you're the one who's going to pay for that. So it was really, starts really rising to be really, really expensive. But yeah, so we started the first lot. First lot was 4 students. For me, I'm always a fan of like, look, just start from where you are. All the other things are detailed. You'll always work them out as you proceed. And so we started from 4 people, the first cohort, and then we did 4 months, and then they graduated, and then the next lot. I mean, granted, one thing I swore to myself was continuous improvement. And so for me, continuous improvement meant that I used to take time to just look at that curriculum and revisit it. And so the initial phase when we started, I had to do both the front end part and do Android. And then these guys would come and do Ruby on Rails. So we had someone else do Ruby on Rails. And that was like Alvin Cato. He'd come and do Ruby on Rails. There's a reason why I think initially we didn't go for Python. I think because we were like, most of the people we had talked to felt like it was easy for us to place these people on Ruby on Rails roles, and Android stuff was obviously what I was good at. So that's what I teach. So, yeah, I know what Bernard is saying. So you are not importing teachers per se. They just used to come to add the flavor or something of the training. It's like, I feel like, yes, we can have the local teachers, but then having that whole international outlook also helps out in a way. And like, granted, there's some things that, yes, we ended up correcting as time went on, because I think the initial phase for me was to do something called learning transfer. So these guys were at Hack Reactor. Hack Reactor were there already. They'd been doing this thing, I think, for like 4 years, 5 years. And so what I would do was, what if you get their students who have the actual experience, not their students, sorry, they're hackers in residence who have gone through as students, who are actually mentoring other students there to come here and be also your hackers in residence. But then when they're hackers in residence, they'd have sessions where they would teach people. That whole system, or the system that we started with at Marina School, I mean, it did make a lot of sense when we were starting out. I'm not lying to you. But then at some point, once we were like stable, now it was like there was no need for us to have someone else come in, especially now that we had that skill acquisition and we knew exactly what was going on at Hack Reactor and what was going on in Silicon Valley and the like. Because I'd have these very extensive conversations with them, just trying to like understand, yeah, how do you do this thing? How is it there? How does Silicon Valley look like? What is it like? And so those inner details of you knowing, like, it really felt like I was there, And so they'd repeat this story, every single person. And I'd have these conversations, not a one-off thing, on a daily basis, weekly basis, like trying to like get this information from them. And so that happened for the whole of that year. And I guess there are so many other instances where I would see there was still, those cracks were still there. And I think by the time we are getting to the end of 2015, I was really, really like, I think now tired. And I was like, oh my God, is this how startups are run? I'd have these conversations with people. And I think I met this at our church at that time. I think she was the wife to the senior pastor. And I think we started having these conversations with her. I think we were never close with her or anything, but she was always like there, and I was always like on this other side. But she was a very silent, wise woman. She's a very wise woman. And I think interacting with her, she now took me in and started understanding, oh, wait, you're that guy. And so there's some other improvements that I was also making within the whole, like, my whole life in general, where you get noticed and then you're told, hey, can you help us run this thing? Can you help us do this other thing? And so the beauty part was when I started interacting with her, she was not looking at me like this is this important person. No, it's like she started learning about me, like, step by step. And so we'd have this extensive conversation. And so she literally became, at the start, someone like your mom. And then at some point now she became like, now this is your friend who is talking to you. She has your ear. I think having these conversations with her, and then slowly by slowly, like opening up and me like expressing like, look, this is what I'm going through. What do you think about this and that and that and that? And so I'm normally that person who does not prefer to share. But what I like to do is I present a scenario and I want to see how would you be looking at it and how would you be able to deal with it. And so I think there were times when she would either tell me something outrightly or sometimes she'd mention something that was not related to me. And McHugh during this time, there was nothing like, oh, God says this, God says that. No, it was more like practical things. And one thing I appreciate, I think, from her was she was such, she is such a wise woman. That I'll tell you 100%. And I think that's why I think I've mentioned it to some of the ladies probably who are in this call. I've talked to them personally, and some guys also know. And the guys who are not, who've never heard me say this is, you will never hear me tweet anywhere that I support women in tech, because I feel like that's nonsense and rubbish. What I prefer to do is I prefer to hold, to be a practical person who does it. We know the problems that ladies or the challenges that ladies are facing already. So I'm not gonna like say, oh yeah, I support women in tech, but I'm not doing anything about it. It's like me to touch these people, hold them by their hands and tell them, look, you know what? You can do this. Let's go and do this thing. And so one of the fun parts that happened is like now we started talking about Moringa School. It's like in a very general part, relationships and stuff. And I think in 2016 is when January, and so during January now I started becoming more stable. And I think during this time I had already been thinking the whole of December when we went for like the holidays of like, how do I want to live as a startup person? And I think I saw one thing that was really clear. That was not the kind of lifestyle I wanted. Like I wanted that lifestyle because my hours involved me working up to sometimes 2 a.m., 1 a.m., and then I go and sleep. I eat fries in town, go sleep, wake up in the morning, come back. So my health really deteriorated. Like people look at Moringa School where it is right now, but they don't know like the sacrifice that needs to be made when you're doing the foundational part. And so the foundation is like the most important thing ever when you're doing anything. And so some of the current the ethics that people have had out here, I don't know about Moringa School right now, but I'll tell you what I know, what we had instilled, and probably some guys who were in cohort 1 all through to cohort 6, and part of cohort 7 would probably tell you that is not this new version of the cohort. I mean, like the past one would probably tell you what it meant to be a Moringa School person. It was you were never told. I think I used to make this speech when they joined Moringa School the first day. I'd tell them like a joke, hi guys, so if you have a relationship, you have a loved one or anything, I'm giving you some 5 minutes right now. Take out your phone and text them and tell them you'll be unavailable for the next 12 to 16 weeks. And I think most of them used to laugh until later on they'd notice like, oh shit, this guy was actually serious. And so it was very interesting during this time. The other bit that I think I also enjoyed was I never used to give you like a lot of work. It's you are the one, the motivation would come from you. And so again, I said I use psychology and teaching and like creating all these systems. For me, it's all about how do you create a system for people to actually gain skills? How do you create a system where people feel like, look, this is our thing? And so it was very interesting how Moringa School students used to know how to sell Moringa School better than myself. And so cohort 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the return people who've been joining Moringa School were actually from relatives. A person who's gone through Moringa School will go and talk about it to someone else, zero payment, and they do that thing for free, passionately, you know. I mean, that is apart from the marketing we used to do. And so the culture that became was, if you want to learn something, when we said immersive there, it used to be really immersive. I don't know about it right now. Maybe someone else can talk about the way it is right now. But I know it used to be massive. That's what I left with. And so the thing that happened that I had to leave was in December when I was thinking about it, and I'd get all of these notes. So every time we'd go for meetings, if I had an issue, I'd jot it down, raise it to Audrey, rub it away, gone. But then I remember in December when I was doing like an annual review of 2015, is when I saw, I was like, look, I keep on raising the same issues over and over, but it's like you're not taking me seriously. What's the problem here? That's like 2015, 2016 started, and it was like the same things. And you know what I said? I was like, you know what? Me being Christian, I was like, I need a sign so I can like live this thing. And so I remember during this time, I'd really give my all, but I always knew, I was like, this is not something that I really want to do it with. Like, I'd really want to do a school and an institute again at some point in future. But then again, I never wanted to like look at I didn't want to do it with the person. It's like a way I want to be married, but I don't want to be married to you. You know, like you probably say that you're in a marriage, but then you feel like, okay, I think I'm not probably not doing enough for it. And that being said, I think I said it in the interview that I did with like June, I think a couple of weeks ago, was that there was nothing wrong with Audrey. I just feel like we were never, it's like water and oil, yes, you were good by starting out, but then gets to a point where something had to give out. And I think for me, one of the things that I kept on looking at was my value system. My value system is something that I hold true to myself. And so if you don't align with my value system, I have zero business doing anything with you. And so 2015, so it came. And so I think when it left when it got to like June, July, I think we had gotten someone from outside, she'd come in, blah, blah. And so I remember I was always asking for a sign. And so there are two signs that came during this time. One was when we had a meeting with Audrey, and Audrey's like, you know what, by the way, you need to leave. And I was like, that's fine, because of all the frustrations and stuff. I just told her, like, that's okay. I think she was shocked and went and talked to like the board. Granted, is like, one of the things is, I sound so diplomatic, lol. There are bloggers in this call, Mikey. I don't want to trend tomorrow. I am good with the way I am. I like my life in private. My issues, let me just say something. This was one of my weakness, by the way, MK. I feel like I was never that bold enough to say, like, you know what, put my foot down and say, you know what, I really don't care what you think. This is how we're gonna do stuff. That was like one of the first things. And so the other thing is I feel like, well, not even I feel like, it's like the way our board was constituted was not via consultation. It was like, you go meet someone, you come and do it. You meet someone, you make them inside the board, and everyone is like, you know what, yeah, board member. And I'm like, wait, what? Like I'm totally shocked. Probably gonna talk about these things off camera. Yeah, so yeah, Sigu, I told you we need to make this a series. It's like a whole season 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to 10. And so Moringa School happened, and I think June, July, and like when she told me like, hey, you have to leave, it's like I just left, and like I left and went. No, I didn't leave at that time. I told her I have to finish with this cohort 7. I was starting out. And so when cohort 7 comes and it's happening, it's more conversation. And I think something happened during this time. And I remember I just like, I had assigned a task. I come back, the task has been taken over and things are happening. And I was like, I really had to ask, like, hey, why did you give this extra task? And I had given this person, like, no, you're not there, I can reach you, blah, blah, blah. This wasn't Audrey, this was someone else. And I was like, you know what? I think this is the moment. I think I'd come to work on that day, and that was at Ngong Lane Plaza, where Moringa School is right now. I don't know whether they've moved right now, but where they were. And it's like I just looked at her and told someone, it was an audio, someone, I was like, you know what? It makes sense. I hand over the teaching, I hand over everything to you, and I went home. And I think this was like a Tuesday or something. And I think that's when I went and made the post. I'd already told some of my friends that I was leaving during that certain week, some weeks leading to, because now everything became like so stressful. It was like, yeah, please share your documents, share your thoughts of writing, share the way you think about teaching people. And so I left. And so when I left, I remember walking away from the lift. I still need to patch things up with the lady who I told her that, because people have always been telling me, like, you need to reach out to her, you need to talk to her. This is what she thinks, blah, blah. Not Audrey, that is, someone else. And so I left her and told her, hey, why don't you just continue teaching and hand over, just continue with the class. And I think I just went and I walked back home from Gong Lane Plaza till South B. And I think I was just like thinking in my head, like, this is a new lease of life. I felt so relieved. I never felt stressed or anything. And I think I just went home and just chilled there. And so let me just like summarize it this way. How my life turned out from that time is I was dating someone during this time. So I told her about Moringa School. She was so excited. And think she knew I was leaving. But then she didn't believe when I left, and she was so shocked. And I think I love the fact that she was close during this time. Obviously, we are not together right now. She had to, there's drama that happened, and then we are no longer together anymore. Let me just say, put it as that. And I think that's like the most important thing that happened. Highlights is after that, I think I just spent, for the first time, I felt like I needed a break from the whole tech scene, because I've been doing a lot of tech stuff. I mean, there's so many friends who kept on reaching out, man, like, dude, how are you doing, blah, blah, blah. And so that's why I have a gap between 2016 until 2017, It was just mostly traveling, chilling, nothing, and just thinking about my life. And I think the first time I popped back up again was when, so Sombo has been a close friend of mine for a couple of years. Same to Sombo and Somet, so the twins, both of them. And so for Somet, I think he started reaching out and was like, dude, we have this Microsoft Africa thing that was happening at Radisson Blue. I know that was the first time now that I popped back up in tech, just like see what's going on and stuff. And like there's so many guys who kept on reaching out and like came home to my place, kept on looking for me for coffee. I never used to accept the coffee thing. Guys used to want like, hey, let's start another company together. And I was like, I don't want to. I just wanted to rest, for one. And so I was really happy I took that break. But then I think during that time, I accidentally started Ali Camp, like a joke, which was training young kids. Like a joke. Ali Camp was never started with the aim of making money. It was more of like impacting people. And I think by the time February was starting is when now we officially started like that, where we started our first classes. You can see the photos if you go back to alicamp.com and you'll see like the clicks of like where we started from a person's living room. That was like the official first day of class. But then like before that, the way I started Ali Camp was more, I stayed in an apartment. So whenever I'd go up and down, I'd see kids playing there. And I was always like, why are these kids playing here? I can teach them tech. So one day I called them and I was like, hey, come, let me show you how to code. And so I knew I can't take young kids and put them inside my house. People start thinking a bunch of things about you. Welcome to society in 2020 or 2017, 2016, and 2000. And so I was like, let me teach them in an open place where there's nothing I can do to this kid. And so I'd open my laptop, sit down. And once I open my laptop and sit down, I'd do a bunch of stuff. Sigwe can help you with editing, so don't worry. So I'd open my laptop and then come and sit on the stairs and I'd show them how to build basic web pages, show them a bunch of stuff, draw their attention, show them like, this is what hacking is. And so they really had fun with like hacker type, I think. So they like code stuff and then they see like, oh yeah, accepted. They'd press a bunch of keys until it worked. Typing club and stuff. And those things formed the foundation of me interacting with kids and opening their brains up and showing them like, hey, you know what? This is what life is. This is what it means to do a bunch of stuff. So overall, like, I was so happy when that happened because then I felt this relief, And so even by the time 2017 was happening and like now I'm meeting these parents for the first time. So the funny part about Ali Camp is I actually had an offer after the first day of class, the first day of official class. And how that official class happened was I used to still mentor at IBs. I'd go to IBs, listen to the guys are pitching their startups, give them advice, blah, blah, blah. Because I've always been there from 2014, maintain those relationships till today. And so what happened with IBs is when I was there, I met this lady called Irene, and she's still there. And so what Irene did was asked me like, yeah, so what do you do? I heard you used to be at Moringa, but then you left. And then I told her the story and she was like, oh my God. Okay, cool. So what do you do right now? I told her, oh yeah, no, I just chill, move around. Oh yeah, but it's something cool I do. I am with these kids. I just have fun with them with tech and teaching because you have to be fun, stop teaching. And when that happened, she was like, wait, I have kids and I have my friends and then we can meet together. And then we started from someone's living room, literally in South B. And then it just grew from there, from someone's living room to a grandparent's living room. And the next thing that you know, is that this thing became like something really huge that we didn't like anticipate with it. And I know after the first session where they asked me, how much do you want to charge this thing? I was like, I don't have any clue. And I think we started from 500 shillings per session. And that is what grew to like the amount of money that we charge nowadays. I mean, you can find the fees there. I don't believe in hiding this information. It's like you just go to Ali Camp, you see the fees there. And so the first meeting we had with them, and they called me aside, the three ladies, and the three ladies, like a checkbook was opened and I was told, how much money do you want? I was trying to figure, because they saw the promise of it. And so from 20, I told them like one thing I wanted to do, and I think Irene helped me in that, is I wanted to really understand, because the kids market is a very different one from the grown-ups one, because kids are a special bunch of people. Because you see, for a kid, it's like they're giving you, they look at you as a role model and a friend. When you have friends with them, you're like their role model. And so I have kids who I'm teaching who went to their grandparents and they're telling their grandparents like, hey, when I grow up, I want to be like Frank. And so the grandma thought that it was Frank, one of the uncles who's like, who dresses in suits and works very well. And so he's happy, he's like, oh yeah, like Uncle Frank. And then they're quick to correct her. No, not like Uncle Frank, like Frank, our computer teacher. And the next thing you know is like, it's hilarious how they tell the parent, no, Frank, our computer teacher, he didn't finish university. And by the way, he just wears jeans. And he makes a lot of money, by the way. So as you want to be like him. The grandmother is shocked. A dropout. And then they say, then one of them was like, no, I don't want to be like him. I want to be like Peter. Peter is the other guy, like the CTO. And so Peter has never seen the inside of a university. Peter was one of the people I hired when I was at Moringa School, a very brilliant engineer. Right now he works for a company outside, but we still maintain contact. And he's 100% involved with Alicam. It was interesting how Peter was their role model in that they're like, Peter has a MacBook. He dyes his hair. The grandmother was dying in horror. These are your role models. Had to ask them up. This Frank guy and Peter, they should never interact with your kids. They're the worst people. Lead your kids astray. Those kids didn't care. They're like, why? What do you mean that you're telling us to go to this place and things like that? And so, long story short, is like these kids right now, they're actually doing a machine learning online e-degree. And we anticipated they're probably going to finish this by around end of next year. So it's a very small one. And so now we started off very well. We've been doing vanilla Python till now. And so the guys were looking to hire people. Maybe you can hire them when they get like 2 years from now. Because the plan is these guys are not going to see high school, the inside of a high school. They're in primary school. They're not going to see the inside of a high school. They're actually going to have all these professional certifications. And maybe at some point in future when they want to do their degrees or something, they'll do it. So I think I'm happy with this model because I've gotten parents who are willing to experiment for the long run. And they're thinking about what's the market like 20, 30 years from now, 5, 10 years from now. These kids are getting to the job market. They're really going to be good in skills. Like right now, some of the projects they do, it's insane. I gave them some tasks today to build some a bank account system that runs on the terminal only, connects with an SQLite, and they have to do this authentication stuff. An account can do this, and there's like a bunch of very interesting, cool stuff that they do. And so we try and train them to think also out of the box and try and see like how can I put the skills that I have to solve problems. So one of the things is I think early campus what has encircled me, and also I know I've not talked about the community for that matter, is when I was at Moringa School when we had started out, that is like 2015 now, when you're having our own space. So one of the things I did was I think I met Hayes, and Hayes was like had come into intern with us, and Android 254 was born from there, where there was this push and pull of we had like so many Android communities, but they were like just communities, names on Meetup, but there was nothing happening. And so what happened is I remember Hayes just came. I think we were frustrated at something that was happening. There was a group that was starting out, I think at NILAB or something. And I think there's like Android developers, but I think we felt like it wasn't going to serve the purpose of like what we wanted to do. And so Hayes always like asked me like, hey, what if we did this? And he just created a WhatsApp group. And that's when the WhatsApp group was formed. And I think the next thing you know is that it became something really huge. The next thing that I think I saw was we saw like an increase of one thing. Guys started joining and we started having these conversations on the tech. But me being someone who wanted something extra was, why don't we have an Android meetup? Because I mean, remember, I think I mentioned, that was like in the first part, I mentioned the story about the way I'd see the way Kina MK used to do their meetup with BlackBerry. I'd see the way Kina Steve and John right now used to do I think it was VB, it was Visual Basic, yeah, because it was from Nini, not VB. I keep on forgetting the name, but it was like a Microsoft meetup that used to happen there. .NET, sorry, it was .NET. Yeah, so it would happen at iHub. And so observing these meetups and seeing that these people were like close, one family, and like for a meetup, I think, and I think you'll probably see you'll probably see something that whenever for me, I think the thing that formed the basis for me was that a meetup was like whether you are 3 or 4, you guys can start off and you'll grow from there. It was not about like numbers and having millions of people in the call or something. It was just fun, like very nice community feel that you have there. Yes, over the last couple of years, that has changed, but it was mostly like, can we meet together and talk about this tech? Yes, we want more people to come, but let's just do something that's fun for us and people can get to learn stuff. And so you see, like the priority has always been like, can we have knowledge transfer more than anything? I mean, I think roughly in between there was the whole story of like swag and food and stuff that came and pirated the whole thing. But I'm glad like that has always corrected itself. So I think we started the first meetup we had for Android 254 I mean, guys go to our Telegram group and meet up and they see 3,000. It was funny how the first meetup we had only we were two people. One was an employee at Moringa School. Now I like this called employee, was like a colleague at Moringa School and myself. And I think I had taken like 40,000 or something, Kenya shillings, and bought pizza and stuff. And I knew like guys are gonna come. And guys didn't show up. And oh my God, like this guy was going for a wedding or something. So he couldn't show up at a wedding with pizza. So I had to carry this pizza back home. And I was not using a cab. So I was using a mat. And you can imagine the look that guys give you when you get into a mat with a lot of pizza. I tried giving this thing away. No one wanted this thing. And I don't know why in my head it didn't click that I could give this thing to the street kids or anything like that. So I ended up going back home with it. So yeah, and I think that first meetup didn't discourage me. We just continued. I just continued having those meetups and talking to people and talking to people and talking to people. And so I think that's how the whole numbers grew. Now I think people are probably wondering how come we've not had any virtual meetups. And I think that was formed for a very conscious decision of saying, look, a lot of online meetups are happening already. What if we went to something where we can have a conversation and give people a platform to talk? And that's when I was doing all this texting, and our focus shifted to more of texting. Let's have a texting session. People might have a problem with data and joining calls and leaving, but guys can text. Guys can text for long. And so even if you miss the session, you don't need to ask, where's the video, which probably you might watch it or not watch it, but then you can go there and just like look at those texts and you find out like, okay, so this guy is gonna be there. Like I think you've seen, I think today it's Juma Alan who's gonna be there, and we are preparing a bunch of questions for him. And so we ask a bunch of questions, and like you see the same thing happening even at Atlassian. It feels like you get into an Atlassian group, you might feel like, oh, these guys know each other, or like within Android, this clique of guys know each other, but it's just like guys who came in and decided to be active, and that's how people start noticing. There's nothing like favoritism or cliques. It's like you're there, you're a part of the community. It's you have to join first of all, then you identify yourself, and then now you start being active, and then now you belong. Now you become a member of that group. And so there's a difference between a visitor and a member. A visitor is just there looking at stuff, but a member is like has a lot invested in it, in that they feel a certain pinch when something is going wrong. They can give suggestions. They can, they want it to be a group that's vibrant. They want to be active in those communities and groups. And so I think that's what has been happening over the last couple of years, right? And months for that matter, where we were like, let's move from having 3,000 visitors to having 3,000 members. And that's a whole different task, because right now, I think the society is suffering from something called FOMO, fear of missing out, where we want to be in groups, but we do not want to be members of those groups. And so that's like, let me just say like that's like a brief history. We can probably organize one day. You guys can come to my place and we can slaughter goats and chickens, because I keep chicken by the way. And we can eat chicken and ugali, brown ugali for that matter. I cook very good brown ugali. That's very nutritious. And we can have this session. If guys drink, we can get drinks for them and stuff. And we can plan that at some point. But like I think for me that is the thing. I know guys are like, yeah, tell us about what happened at Moringa School, give us the reasons. But like I'll tell you one thing. It's like my life has been a direct product of the people that I've met. And I think that's why I don't know how to be disrespectful towards people. I can be stern at people, but I don't know how to be rude or disrespectful towards them, because the thing is, I gave you the story of IHAB. I've given you all this bunch of stories, and it's never been about me going to beg or like, let's say I'm going to be active with NK because he's a member of Atlassian, is a relation. This is like, he's going to give me like swag and stuff. I mean, if that's how you're reasoning life, I mean, you've lost it. It's like, you just be you, the person that you are. And I think you don't lose your identity by being a nice person. Not like nice per se, by being true to yourself. Like, this is what you want to do. And then it's not about you not being active, like waiting for someone else to effect changes. I mean, we have our Africa here. The reason as to why actually I'm really passionate about early camp is because, let me tell you the truth, India, China, Japan had visionary leaders back in the 1920s who invested in the country, invested in the educational system. And how they invested in the educational system is they say, look, you guys, we're going to train you guys, we're going to take you to the States, but you need to come back and transfer this knowledge here. And that's why right now, there is no company in the world in the top 5 that makes a shit ton of money, like a lot of money in the world right now, that does not have an Indian, that does not have a Chinese, that probably doesn't have a Japanese inside there. There is no company in the world. I dare you to show me one company. When we talk about Google, when you talk about Microsoft, when you talk about like, there is no company in the world right now that does not have a Chinese actor somewhere there, that does not have an Indian. There is no company. Now, the question is, we keep on saying Africa is the next frontier market and stuff. I am not lying to you. We'll keep on saying it unless someone or a group of people decide, you know what, let's invest for the future. I've always held to the belief that I am MK, I'll send the pin. I am one person who believes in one thing. If we are not the people who are gonna make millions. If you're doing any startup right now, forget it. You're not gonna have your $1 million exit. One or two are gonna happen. One or two are gonna happen. For that matter, I'm sure. One or two. But the bulk of people, right now, we need to invest in this young generation. 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old. Let me give you a funny story. When these kids are learning how to code, they're not learning how to code because they have an exam to do. They're not learning how to code because they have a job to do. They're learning how to code because it's fun. And so when you give them a problem, they'll spend time with it and they'll come up with a solution. And so when we get to a point where, imagine a kid who's been coding for 10 years straight with one specific thing under guidance. When these guys are going to start their companies at 17, 18, 19, like the way Stripe did, oh my God, they're going to be solving actual problems. We are solving problems right now, but there are bigger problems coming up. And so these are the people who are going to have the $1 million exit. So what's supposed to be our plan? Let's get to these places where we can help them, save money, give them guidance, get all this knowledge, not act as gatekeepers, you know? And so that's the thing, one of the things that has happened. Over and above that, I think my personal life also has been interesting. I prefer to stay alone. Like, I just love my own space and stuff. I really love it. So I think I'll confidently say that I am, and I'm looking if this guy is online right now, or he's here, that is fine. I have always maintained that I am 100%. It's like I'm single by choice. Because I think I want to be there. I want to be in that space because I think I enjoy it. I don't feel any urge or pressure to like, yeah, you need to do this right now. You need to excel that stuff. No, I feel like there's like stuff still that you can do, and I don't think that's the reason. And I thought some people will say, it's because you are heartbroken. No, that's not the reason. I've dealt with all that drama. I like dealing with stuff immediately and then leave it and then you focus on other things. The last couple of months now, I've been working at Snap Mobile, which is a very interesting group in that I think I decided to join them because of one basic thing. It's like I felt like I needed to also write code, because I think writing code, yes, for fun is one thing, but then writing code professionally is like a totally different thing. And so I've been working on a certain project, and it's like super exciting, and I'm so enjoying it 100%. There's some things I didn't even know, and now I'm learning. And that's the thing, like you'll never get to this point where you're right. And so that has been the part for it. The other thing that I think maybe is good to mention is that there's all this DroidCon and Android 254. I don't do them alone. We do it with a bunch of people. Again, I told you, yes, as much as I love spending time alone, but I love working with guys. It's like if there's something that can benefit me, I usually start to wonder who's the next person that I can call up to this thing? Who's the next person that doesn't have this opportunity? And let's try and grow them and give them that thing to run with 100%. I think for the last couple of months or weeks, you've never seen me post anything about OpenBar, and I'll never post anything about OpenBar because it's some other two amazing ladies who are behind that, and Harry is also like helping them out with stuff. And it's like we have guys who join up and do this stuff. That's like I'm talking about the OpenBar 424. I have to be specific nowadays. so like yeah, and I think it's very interesting how people come in and they take ownership of this thing. Now, if you ask me what are my plans for the next 5 years, 10 years, I think we're probably brainstorming. You probably hear me mention him so much because I feel like we've talked this thing. I've been thinking about doing a radio station for tech, or a channel for like tech, where you can have your episodes like this ones and they can continue running like a program thing. So you have your podcast, it's like an online radio that runs, and also like having this YouTube stream things that are happening. And all this is like a massive investment that I already started doing right now. Do I want to license it to Communications Authority? Like probably, I don't know, maybe, yes, no, I don't know. But there's something like more global where we have a voice from Africa that people can actually hear it. Now my focus has shifted to more, how can we bring more continental people to the picture? And so whenever, sometimes I think we move around and we hear people saying, hey, we want to compete with this person and that person. It's usually very hilarious in that guys don't get the message that's happening over there. So it's good for us to also understand that I think having these conversations will never end. We still need these conversations. We still need people to be motivated. We still need people to push themselves out here. So I guess that has been like the summary of everything. And so now we have DroidCon. Now I think the new phase of my life is more people have been telling me like, you need to put yourself out there. Other guys go to some certain sessions where I'm giving a talk and they're like, wait, you're Frank Tamre. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, this is me. I'm like, I didn't know this is you. And so I'm like, yeah, no, I think that's like accepted. And I think it's good because if anyone who's in this call, I think there are a bunch of guys who come for the meetups and they say, they're talking to me and they're asking me, I'm looking for Frank Tamre. And sometimes I've pointed them at Juma and told them Juma is not organizing this thing. And I don't tell them, it's like, that's the guy organizing it. Or I point them at some random people like Magak or someone. And so I do that specifically because when they come to me, they're like, I'm looking for the organizer of this thing. His name is Frank Tamre. And so they go to those people and I point them at them. And I don't know, I like doing it for fun because I don't want to be known like there out there. It's fun being where I am. I like being where I am, where you orchestrate things and it's lovely like that. So like, yeah, so that's the thing I think probably that I would say. And I'll just reiterate one thing. This is a final comment, is that life is never going to be easy. So don't assume if you're there, you're a beginner or anyone. Don't assume that your life is going to be easy. There are some sacrifices that I've had to make. One of the things that I think I didn't mention is when I was doing Moringa school, my health went really, really bad. It was so bad that some of my friends who knew me back then used to know I used to wear, I think it was like 3 sweaters. So long sleeved ones, 3 of them, and the tight ones, the long ones till the hand. And then on top of that, I'd wear like a coat. And so that was me, whether it was hot or cold. If I dare removed even 2 layers, oh my God, I would sneeze so much. And it was so bad. And it has taken me a couple of years to even recover what I'd lost then. And so one of the things is, yes, you will pay the price, but don't be stupid in doing the following. Take care of your health. You need to take care of your health. And I think I'll end it at this point. You see that story I was referring to that my grandma told me? The point that I didn't talk about it specifically was, I'll talk about 2 things, my grandma's story and then the athletics thing I was telling you. And so let me start with the athletics thing. And so the athletics thing I refer to is, if you're a developer, and I know most people in this call are developers, is have a system where you say you're going to live your life as a dev. And so a dev, think of it as an athlete. You need to practice. You know, when we look at the Messis, the Cristiano Ronaldos, the Federers, the Ian Phelps and the like, they practice a lot. I mean, I swim. I'll tell you, I practice a lot. I miss swimming right now, like no one's business. I wish there was a pool that was open. If you know, please tell me. In Nairobi, a pool in Nairobi that is open. I really want to go and swim. And so the amount of practice they put in to be an Olympian, they say 10,000 hours, but usually more than 10,000 hours. And what that means is, as a developer, have a schedule where you practice on your skill. And you say, I'm going to wake up, I want to learn about this concept. And you practice on it and you become really good at it, even if you're employed. The beauty of that is it starts setting you apart. You start being a very good developer. You start being really good at whatever things you're doing. And that's the thing. And so by the time you're coming now to get into the workplace, you're this person who's really good. By the time you're coming to start searching for jobs, you're someone who's like on that superstar level. And the last thing I'll probably leave you with is that story of my grandma. I like leaving it to people because I want to just think about it. So I say like my grandma before she passed on. This is 2 weeks or 2 months. I'm not that clear. But then what she said was something very interesting. She said, you're a human being. You have, I said it earlier, 2 parts. If you look at your head, one is you have 1 head. So you don't have 2 heads. And so when you have 1 head, that is, you're not a beast. So you have 1 head. So when you have 1 head, you have 2 of everything inside your head. And the head is the most important part of the body. And so when you have 2 parts of the brain, you have 2 ears, you have 2 eyes, and you have 2 nostrils. But you know what she said? You have 1 mouth and 1 tongue. You can have so many teeth, but then you have 1 mouth and 1 tongue. And so she was fascinated how most of us, we talk more, but then we don't think enough about the actions that we want, about the things we want to say. We don't think enough. We don't observe enough, you know. And so my mom says, kuwa kama mjinga, meaning be like a stupid person. She didn't say like be ignorant. It's like observe. Just keep quiet and observe. And I came to London when I met my grandma, when we had conversations with my grandma. And so when I was with her, it was like at night, and we had this conversation randomly. It's those conversations that stick with you, because that's the last conversation we had with her where she was advising me. And then she passed on. I think it's like a month later or a couple of weeks later. And so she gave me that. She gave me some certain wishes she had when she passes on, or do this, do that. But then that story stuck with me because she said, in as much as yes, you should keep quiet, but don't be afraid to talk. When you need to talk, you need to talk. When you need to give feedback, please give feedback. Because those are the things that start to make us as human beings. I feel like in Africa, we need that right now. Think yes, observe yes, hear yes, and listen, but then also talk. When things are bad, things are bad. Now, I think over the last couple of years, I'm happy with the people I've met. I think when we start talking about, oh, I've mentored this guy, mentored that guy, people really throw a bunch of things into the whole picture. But I think one thing I know is that my messages are always open. If you reach out, I'm definitely going to have conversations with you. If I don't reply to you, it's so that I'm ignoring you. Sometimes I can click on the conversation, then I forget. Please, if you see it's past like a couple of hours or days, just text back and say, but don't text hi. Hi does not cut it with me. I find it strange when you text someone hi. What does hi mean? You know? So that's the thing. But I'm always like, yeah, you're open to all those things. So I have nothing else to say. I'm sorry for maybe talking too much, Sigu. But yeah, I'm happy that you guys invited me to talk. I think this is the first time I'm probably talking about all this Moringa School stuff. And so, yeah. I can answer any other question out of camera. The recording is not going to be put up on YouTube. So thank you so much, Team Podii and Fun Friday, Chandereta, Sigu, the whole team. Like, I'm really happy that you guys are here. And I'm also happy that you guys made time to just come and like listen to me, because I think it's good. Yeah, I like also NKSA. Talk when you have something important to say. I think that has become a default thing. I was told I am an old person nowadays. So yeah, see, you can stop the recording, or yeah, Sigu, I've been told, yeah, someone is saying, yeah, bring Banta into this thing. So Banta has a question, so I don't know whether he'll type it or he'll ask it to me. But Sigu, I think it's time for me to hand it over to you, Team Podii.
Thank you, Frank. It was such an interesting session. Thank you. We learned a lot. Pole time I go to allow when I'm more than that, but
No,
yeah, so
it's okay. Yeah, I think I'm gonna answer the other questions, not on the recording, because I think you told me there's that format. You guys need to record, but then there's the other bits.
yeah, okay, so
Yeah.
let me stop the record.
Okay. So